Morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on from where you are joining us from today in this AFM InFocus webinar, which is the support for June 2025 exams. My name is Richa and I work as Education Support Manager at ACCA. So, our session, Manage Your Approach, Master Your Exam Strategy, it is designed to help you with your upcoming exam preparations. And today, Andrew Moore has joined us to impart AFM knowledge. So during this session, Andrew will showcase how to present exam answers effectively for higher marks through some examples. He will also be sharing his insights on common student challenges and will also be sharing few important tips and giving answers to the questions which are frequently asked by students. But that doesn't mean that we will not be picking live questions. We will be picking live questions as well towards the end. So, as the title suggests, it is an opportunity to learn the exam approach and design your strategy in a way that it can maximize your preparation for June 2025 exams. So, before I hand over to Andrew, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items very quickly for you. So, you will be finding a few buttons on your screen. There is a help icon which provides resource and information that can help you resolve any technical issue which you may have during this webinar. Then there are icons for slides and both media player. You will need to see both of these during the webinar to make sure that you have selected them. Attendee chat function is there. So you can engage with fellow webinar attendees. You can also let us know from where you are joining us from, but you should not be sharing too many of your personal details in the chat. Resource list is there. That's a file-like symbol. If you click on that, you will be able to access the resources which are very much relevant to today's AFM session, and all the resources include direct links as well. So you can rearrange your screen to suit you and resize the windows if you need to. And if at any point you cannot hear what we are saying or you cannot see any visuals, please do refresh your browser. Registering for this webinar means that you will be sent an email tomorrow with details of how you can listen to it again. So don't worry, if you miss something or you have any technical issue, you will be able to access the recording. I am going to hand over to Andrew in a moment and will be back with you towards the end of the session. In the meantime, if you want to ask ACCA or Andrew a question, then please post them in Q&A box. Please also note that we cannot guarantee responding to everyone directly, either verbally or via web chat, but we hope that the questions we share will be helpful to everyone. Handing over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Richa. Hi, everyone, and welcome along to the June InFocus webinar. So over the next hour, I'm going to give you as many tips as I possibly can to get you that pass that you want in AFM. So I'm going to give you all of my wisdom. I'm going to give you as much advice as I can to get you that successful 50% or hopefully a few more marks to get you over that point. So in this session, we are going to be talking about this idea of managing your approach to this exam and mastering your exam strategy. Lots of people obsess in AFM about the details, you know, the little numbers here and there, but you've got to think big picture. And if you can get your strategy right, all of you can get at least 50%. Everyone can pass this exam. It's possible. You've just got to know how and what you're looking for and what we're aiming to do. So that's what we're going to go through, and that's what we're going to do in this session. Now, I do want this session to be engaging and interactive, so I'll ask you to put things into the attendee chat at times, or get your thoughts and your ideas as well. So we'll get you guys involved. It's not just going to be me talking about this subject. So just before we start, really quickly, a little bit about me. So my name's Andrew Moore. I started my finance career at PwC in Leeds in the UK, in the north of England, and was there where I qualified and worked in forensic services. I then left PwC and joined Kaplan as a tutor in London for over a decade. So worked at Kaplan, helped thousands of people pass their exams. I left Kaplan and started working on my own and working with ACCA as an expert tutor. So helping them with AFM and doing webinars like this and YouTube content and doing various other bits with ACCA as an expert tutor. I also have my own courses through Andrew Moore Tuition, and they are hosted through a company called AMA Learn Online. So I also do my own AFM courses along the way. So there's a really quick snapshot about me. I know what you need to pass AFM, and that's exactly what I'm going to tell you in this session. So we're going to look at how to present your answers effectively. Now, I went to the Shooter conference a couple of weeks ago that they host every year. And this was a real common theme from the examiners. So you meet the AFM examiners, they're there. You can see them. It's like, for you guys, these are these mythical creatures, aren't they? Do they actually exist? They do. They're real people. And they were giving advice on how to pass AFM. And one of the big themes that came out of it was presentation. And if you can present your answers well and make it easy for the markers, you'll do so much better. So I'm going to give you loads of tips on that. I'm then going to run through some common student challenges. What is it that makes the AFM pass rate consistently around 45%? What are those 55% of people who don't pass this exam doing wrong? So we'll go through that. I've then picked 5 frequently asked questions that I get all the time from AFM students. So we'll finally clear those up. And then at the end, I'm going to leave some time for you guys to ask me questions. So there's going to be a live Q&A at the very end. You can throw away with your questions. We'll do our best. We've got a lot of people on, so I won't be able to answer every question, but I'll run through them and I'll answer as many as I possibly can. So we're going to start with presenting your answer effectively. And again, I think lots of students think, I'll just get it down. I just need to be quick. I'll just put it down however I want. But at this level of ACCA, that's not okay. You can't be doing that. This is a level where you're meant to be presenting a report to the board of directors, for example, in question 1, quite commonly. And if you were presenting to the board of directors and you just wrote down a load of numbers and at the end said, yeah, do the project, they'd be going, well, I'm not sure I trust this advice, so why should I listen? And you've got to think of it like that. We've got to be professional and we've got to present it in a way that's really easy to read, really easy to mark. So if you lay your calculations out well, you will earn more marks. So that is a really important point. And again, sometimes people just want to do as many numbers as they can, but it's almost impossible to mark. So you've got to think about the layout. And again, lots of people sort of sacrifice this and focus on other things, but lay it out properly and you'll do really well. So I've got an example for you here, and I'm going to show you some bad calculations. This isn't you guys. This isn't what you guys are going to do, because you guys are attending this webinar and you'll know the secrets as to what you need to do. But here is an example of some bad calculations. So this is an NPV, in case you were wondering. So there's an NPV calculation. What I want you to do is just put into the chat, in the attendee chat, what is wrong with those calculations? What do we think this student could have done better in terms of these calculations? Why am I saying these are bad? So just put some ideas maybe in the attendee chat, so you can just throw a few ideas in there. Anything that that doesn't look particularly good about these calculations? No headers, Kirsty, brilliant. Yep. No headings, lovely. So it's not labeled, is it? Yeah, that's a good shout. No descriptions, yeah. No years, that's a good spot as well. Yeah, no years. Yeah, the rounding's not great, is it? Now, rounding, to be fair, isn't too much of an issue, but we want to make it look neat if we can, and it's actually really easy just to make it nice and neat with the roundings. Numbers, yeah, not formatted yet. Rounding, Ariba, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, again, doing the decimal places and things is not great. So yeah, lots of things that could be improved. So let's just have a quick look. Yeah, not review friendly, so they're not labeled. Other things, they don't show clear workings in here, do they? Like, you can't see where the numbers have come from, and you might be able to click into the cells, but yeah, we're not entirely sure. But also, can you see it doesn't give a clear answer? You look at all those numbers and you just go, well, where is the answer? So what am I looking at? Where is the NPV? Exactly, Richard, that's it. Where is the answer? Now, that second point on my list there, bad calculations. I've put in there, use a manual calculator. Now, this is something that they pointed out in the conference, and I actually did a LinkedIn post about this day before yesterday, I think, or over the weekend, which was me putting my calculator in the bin. I don't know if anyone saw that, but I got my calculator and I threw it in the bin, because you need to use the software when you're doing all of your calculations in AFM. Students apparently, according to the examining team, are still doing the numbers in their calculator, like the manual calculator, and then typing them in. Now that takes ages and it makes mistakes. And also, most importantly, you can't then get the working marks, because the markers don't know where the numbers are from. They can't see what you've done in your calculator. So use the software. It's quicker, it's more accurate, and you get the method marks as well. So yeah, don't go using your manual calculator for anything. Put it in the bin if you want to be extreme. Right, I'm going to redo this question now as it should be. You ready? So here are some good calculations. Exactly the same numbers, but laid out in a slightly nicer way. Now, can you see that? So you just go, wow, okay, now we're talking. That's an MPV. Paul, good question. Yes, the markers can see the calculations you've done within the cell. Yeah. So yeah, they can see that. Now, can you see this? Like how much better this looks? It's the same calculations, but I've labeled it, I've rounded it, as you guys were saying. So it looks neater from that perspective. Again, rounding's not too much of an issue, but it does certainly look neater. I've done separate workings. Now, I haven't shown you all of the workings because I couldn't fit them on the screen, but I've shown you sales, for example, clearly labeled workings. And also, can you see that I've put the MPV in bold? So the MPV is done in bold, and I've said, here is my answer. And as you said, I think it was Richard earlier said, like, where is the MPV? Well, you can clearly see it now, can't you? So I've made that answer bold, and you can see what's going on. So can you see the difference? Is everyone all right? And it's going to be like so much easier to mark, isn't it? So it's going to be so much quicker and easier to mark for the markers. Yeah, it's a good question, Patrick. Again, they addressed this in the conference I was at a couple of weeks ago with the workings. So if you do separate workings like I've done there for sales, great, that's great. But if you were to do those directly in the cells, and you could do, couldn't you? You could do that just within each cell and use some formula in the software. That's also fine. So either way is fine. If you want to do your workings directly in the cells, or if you want to do them as a separate working, then that's fine as well. Ariba, I'll talk about that a bit later, presentation. But yeah, it's going to be, it makes it easier to mark, so you're much more likely to get marks. But also in question 1, the big 50 marker, you get communication marks. So that's important. So there are your calculations. Now let's think about your discussion parts. And this is one of my biggest tips for you guys for passing AFM is make sure you do the discussion bits properly. There are loads of marks going. I think people assume AFM is all about the calculations. And so people will spend ages doing the numbers and then they'll just go accept the project at the end. Or, they'll do some token effort for the discussions. But that's not all right. You need to add value and you need to properly focus on the discussion marks. If you don't do the discussion properly, you're not only throwing away the discussion marks, you're also throwing away a load of the professional skills marks as well. You're not going to get your skepticism. You're not going to get your commercial acumen. So it's really important that you get onto the discussion when you're doing these questions. Now, when you're doing discussion, I'm going to show you some bad discussion to begin with. And then again, I'll show you how we should do it instead. So here is an answer about how real options could benefit this company X PLC. So just have a quick read of that. And again, pop into the attendee chat. What is the issue with that? What feedback would you give this student? If you were looking at that, what would you say to this student that they need to work on? So put your ideas in the attendee chat. Helen, yeah, lovely. Blah, blah, blah. This sums it up perfectly, Helen. Yeah, lovely. Waffle, rambling, get to the point. Now, I've exaggerated this. I think if a student did that, then yeah, they've gone overboard. And Eva, yeah, good shout around not mentioning the company name. That's a very good point. Yeah, Madeline, perfect. You need to be concise, clear, and to the point. Perfect. So, again, I've exaggerated. Furthermore, one should consider the potential impact of one day, the possibility, whether likely or unlikely. I've said nothing. So it's always good to start with a keyword. So go straight in with a keyword. And Eva, love the idea of mentioning the company name. And yeah, no numbers as well. I need to use information from the scenario and use the exhibits to really help your answers. So this is, again, it's waffle, it's generic. There's no specifics there to the scenario at all. I've not added any value. And also it's laid out poorly. It's a big block of text. So if the business is fortuitous. Yeah, again, I'm using I'm using some sort of fancy language, which you don't need to do. Keep it simple is very important. So let's rewrite that in a more concise and to the point way. Now, of course, we haven't got the exhibit, but I just want to show you an example. Subheadings are brilliant. I love subheadings. So breaking up your answer with little points like that helps you because it keeps your answers concise and you know what you're referring to. And it just makes it so easy to mark. Now, can you see I've started with a keyword? Expansion of the existing project. Great. I've got straight into the expansion. I've not said, furthermore, notwithstanding the potential, I've not done any of that nonsense. And then I've also used the company name. So we put in there using Xco's spare factory capacity. There we go. I'm using some information from the scenario now. And then it would increase the appeal to shareholders. So I'm thinking about the bigger picture. That also helps with the commercial acumen. And then with the option to abandon, again, started with selling. So abandoning the project 2 years early. So again, using specifics from the scenario. And that will benefit if new competitors launch a similar product. Again, I'm adding value. I'm linking it to the scenario and I'm using that, which is great. So can you see the difference? Again, we've laid it out clearly. I've got to the point related to the scenario and structured it properly as well. And that's going to really help with that. Now, your discussion points can be concise. You don't need to write loads. You need to make sure you've related it to the scenario, but you need to be concise as well. So it's a bit of a balance. You can't just do bullet points. Don't do bullet points because they're not enough in AFM. You want to write full sentences and full paragraphs, but they need to be concise and move on. So I always say something like that. The amount that you've done there is great. So the amount that I've put in there is going to be really useful and that'll get you the marks. Now, this is from the Read the Mind of the Marker article. Now, I did a webinar on that last time. It's on ACCA's YouTube channel. So if you've not seen that webinar, it's a really good one to go and watch about how the marking process works and what the markers are looking for and how to obtain marks. And this was from a student who did really well in question 1. So in question 1, the big 50 marker, they got 5 communication marks. So this is because, and I've just highlighted there, the format and the structure of the report have been met. The style, language, and clarity of the report are very good. And the answer is specific and relevant. So 5 marks for doing that stuff, getting your report format, getting your structure right, getting the style and language and clarity right. That's a lovely start, isn't it? 5 marks. You're 10% of the way to a pass just from getting your report format sorted in question 1. Oh, this is a dream. So that answers your question earlier, Reba, about do you get marks for your layout? In question 1, absolutely. If your layout is good and you get your style and language right, you're going to get marks, which is brilliant. So I talk about the report format, and I get this question all the time, and I sort of preempted it. What do I need to do to get the report format right? So here is the answer. We're going to need to do a to, from, and date. So that's always good. And you can put a little title at the top if you want as well, but to, and it can be board of directors, from. Now, it might be financial manager, financial consultant, whatever you want. Don't put your name. So don't put your actual name. Just put something like financial consultant's fine. That's exactly what that student did in the Read the Mind of the Marker report, where they were going, this is amazing. So I've taken that phrase exactly from the report where the markers were going, this is brilliant. So dates, again, you can put today, or if you know what the date of when you're doing your exam, then you can pop that into there as well. We need an introduction, and I'll talk about that more in a sec. So you'll have that as a heading. You then need your report findings and a conclusion. So that's what's going to be in the word processor. Now, I saw a question a little bit earlier, which was, where do you do your discussion points? All of this has to be in the word processor. So when you're doing all the discussion points, do them in the word processor. Then separately, in the spreadsheet, you'll have an appendix. And all you need to do there is just label in the spreadsheet, just put appendix at the top, and that's going to be in your spreadsheet, and that's where you're going to do all of your calculations. So you need introduction, report findings, and conclusion, and then you need an appendix, which is where you're going to put your calculations. So let me give a little bit more advice on each of these. Your introduction, 2 to 3 line overview of the task. Now, this needs to be really concise. Again, the examiners have said people are writing introductions that are too long. And that can just be a very quick overview of what the requirements are asking you to do. So we are going to do something like this report aims to assess the proposed investment in Zedland, discussing the assumptions, and then concluding on its viability or something, something like that. Just a really quick overview of what the requirements are asking you to do. 2 or 3 lines is fine. Don't go mad on the introduction. Then you're going to do your report findings. And this is where you're going to do your discussion requirements. Now, still label those like part B1, B2, B3. Make it easy to mark for the markers. But you're going to use the word processor to do your discussion. And then you need to do a conclusion. So again, really concise, 2 to 3 lines, and include a recommendation. Should they do that project? Or if it's hedging, which hedging product should they go with? Or if it's evaluation, what are the major risks? Should they make this acquisition? So do a little summary at the end where you just wrap up and do a recommendation. That would be amazing. And then your appendix, as mentioned, needs to be in the spreadsheet. That's where you're going to do all of your calculations. So do all your numbers in there. So in terms of discussion points, even things like assumptions, I do them all in the word processor. So they don't like you writing that many full sentences and things in the spreadsheet. You're better off doing that in the word processor. Now, of course, in the appendix, when you're labeling things, or if you're just making a quick note about your workings within your calculations, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't write any words in your spreadsheet. But if you find yourself writing a full sentence or a paragraph, you're better off doing it in the word processor. It's easier to mark and it's more professional when you're doing that. So, for example, if you do an MPV and you want to say, oh, the MPV is positive, let's accept the project in order to do that in your report format in the word processor. Don't do it in the spreadsheet. Okay. Now, someone asked about a title. Yeah, you can do a quick title at the top, just saying report to board of directors or something, and underline it if you want. But again, when you've got your to from date, it's very clear to the markers that you've started your report. So should be fine. Okay, is everyone all right with that report format? Can you just give me some thumbs up or something? Give me something just to make sure everyone's okay, because I want everyone to get these marks. This should be nice, easy marks. And getting that set up, again, little tip, when you're doing this in question 1, get it set up at the start, get it all laid out like this, and you're on to a really, really good beginning to your exam, which is amazing. Okay, super. Lovely, thanks. Good job. So that's our report format. And that is the end of our presentation section, so how to present our answers. So just a quick recap. Calculations, make sure they're really clearly labeled with sensible workings. You've got your discussion, so we're going to structure it and we're going to be concise and add value. And then we've done our report format where we are then structuring all of that, which is great. Okay. Good job. Right. Let's think now about some common student challenges. So let's do this. So what are the major challenges? What's the reason that people sometimes struggle with AFM? Not you guys, but what's the reason why some people struggle a little bit with AFM? So the first thing is time management. So poor time management. Now, this is really common. And this is the biggest threat to you in this exam, by the way, is that you run out of time. Because it's time pressured, isn't it? I get it. I did a question to time a few weeks ago, and yeah, I know exactly all the pro formas I need, and I know exactly how to structure it and everything. And I did it just about within the time allocated. Yeah, it's not like you can just do these questions in 10 minutes and just go, that was easy. There's a lot to do, and that's deliberate. So you've got to play the game a little bit and just think, okay, they've given me loads to do. They haven't given me much time. I just need to manage my time really carefully when I'm doing this. So very important that you do that. So in terms of time management, the risks you face. Firstly, spending too long on a question. Now, this is a real threat because people want to do as well as possible on every question. And sometimes you just almost go super focused on one question. I must do it. I must get it perfect. But you then run out of time on the later questions. And there are always going to be easy marks in the later questions. So you've just got to be very strict with yourself and be disciplined and make sure you move on when you're doing that. And I'll talk through exact question timing shortly. Also, people miss entire requirements. Because they've run out of time, they don't answer entire chunks of the exam, which is a shame. You want to try and answer everything. Now, there was a phrase that the examining team used the other day in the conference, which was give yourself a chance out of 100. And if you attempt every mark in this exam, even if some of them are quite tricky, but you just give it a go, you only need 50% of those to be right, don't you? If you try 100 marks, you only need half of them to be right, and then you've passed. But imagine if you only try 80 marks. You've got 50 out of 80 you need to be right. You now need to get effectively 63% correct in order to pass this exam. You've just made it a lot harder for yourself. So attempting everything is great. And again, even if it's just a bit of a quick go, just give it a quick shot, you're more likely to pick up a few marks. If you leave it empty, you are definitely getting 0. If you get something in there, you might pick up a few marks if you make some sensible points. This is, within time management, this is the thing that catches people, getting caught up in the calculations. Has anyone ever done that? Have you done this when you're practicing AFM questions? Can anyone relate to that? This idea that you're doing a number and you just get lost in the calculations. You lose all sense of time because you're just going, I need to get the numbers. And this is a real issue with something like an NPV or hedging questions where you know there's an answer at the end. Yeah, with an NPV, you know there's an answer at the end, isn't there? There's a number you need to get to at the end of the NPV in order to complete the question. And so many people just think, I have to get that number. And you might have 20 minutes to do the NPV and you are 30 or 40 minutes in and you're still going, yeah, Evo, you just want to make it perfect. And it's exactly that. You've just not got to be a perfectionist. You just have to go, you just have to be right. I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to go as quickly as I can. And I'm just going to move on. Now, Paul, that's a really good point. If your futures hedge doesn't quite, if you're doing it 2 ways and it doesn't quite match or something, you might be going, no, this isn't right. You've just got to keep swimming. Betty, my favorite phrase, you've got it in there for me, just keep swimming. You've just got to go. I just need to keep going. And Madeline, you know you can get the calculation. But you've got to be happy in this exam going, right, that will do. I'm just going to move on to the next bit. Or I can feel that I'm getting lost in the details here. That's not an issue. So you could spend literally 10 minutes chasing 1 mark in this exam. I tell my students often, I'll show them, oh, this entire bit of that question, that was 1 mark. And they laugh. They go, are you kidding me? All of that was 1 mark. And at the time, you got so stressed about it, going, I must get this number. I must get it. And then I go, oh, yeah, all of that. Yeah, it was 1 mark. They go, are you joking? And you could have done so much more in that time. You could have done 3 discussion points and picked up 3 marks, or done a load of professional skills and picked up loads of easy marks. So don't get caught up in the calculations and just keep swimming. So just move on and you'll be fine. Exactly. Now, I'll talk about that later, but just guessing a number and moving on is a great strategy in here. So because of that, people often don't leave sufficient time for the discussion parts. Now, someone asked me yesterday, actually, do you think I should start with the discussion parts? We're doing a hedging question, and there was part A was a big hedging bit. Part B was some discussion, which didn't really require too much knowledge from the calculation you've done. And they said, do you think I should start with that? And you might want to consider that as a strategy. Start with the discussion bits. If it's quite standalone and you don't really need to reference the numbers, it's not a bad idea because there'll be loads of easy marks in there which you can get. So maybe consider that. Again, have a look at the question, but it's not a bad idea just to avoid getting caught up. And again, don't be a perfectionist with your numbers. And again, because of all this, because people miss the discussion parts, I get so sad when people are just throwing away professional skills marks. Stating your assumptions and challenging them. There are really easy marks there. And talking about the context, the scenario, getting those commercial acumen marks, they're really straightforward. In every question, they're going to be there. And again, people forget those. They're the sorts of things people sacrifice in order to do those calculations more perfectly. But again, you've just got to get the easy marks. So just get the easy marks, and again, you can get a pass really easy. So that's time management. So that is a real challenge. And what is important is to have a clear strategy for your timings. Now, for the big 50 mark question, we are going to see it's 98 minutes. So this is applying 1.95 minutes per mark. So the whole exam is 3 hours, 15 minutes, and that's 195 minutes. So that's 98 minutes you've got in total to do the 50 marker. So my strategy is to plan and read the big 50 mark question for 18 minutes at the start. And then you're going to write up your answer, do all your calculations, do all your discussion for 80 minutes. So during the planning and reading time, start by reading the requirements. So what do they want me to do? Then you're going to plan out your answer with the report format. That's the very first thing I do in the exam, is get my report format set up with headings and subheadings and get it all structured like I showed you a few minutes ago. And then you can go away and start reading the exhibits, making notes. You can start putting notes into your answer as you do that. And when you are planning, by the way, I'd plan in the answer box. I wouldn't write it anywhere else or just make notes, because that won't get marked. Start putting things into your answer box. So that's the first 18 minutes. Then you've got your writing time. So this is where you're going to write up your answers, do your calculations. And that conveniently leaves 2 minutes per mark. So if you've got an MPV, which is 15 marks, how many minutes are you going to spend on it? So you've got a 15 mark NPV. Here's a test of your maths. How long are we going to spend? So 15 mark MPV, we will spend how long on that? Anyone want to pop it into the attendee chat? You can all do this one. 30 minutes. Well done, Ariba. Quick on the maths as always. Yeah, 30 minutes we're going to spend on the MPV. And that is where you've got to be really disciplined. I'm going to spend 30 minutes. If I'm running low on time, I'm just going to quickly, I'll just make up a number for now, and then that will have to do. So we're going to be very strict. Okay, so that's the big question 1. Question 2 and 3, essentially you just halve it. So you've got 49 minutes to do each question now. And I spend 9 minutes reading and planning it, and then 40 minutes writing it. So that's going to be, the first 9 minutes will be reading the requirements, planning out your answer with all the headings and subheadings. Remember, you don't need a report format in question 2 and 3, so don't waste your time doing all that in these ones. That's just in question 1, and then read the exhibits. Then you're going to write up your answer. So again, do all your calculations, do your discussion, allowing 2 minutes per mark, and then you're going to be great. You're going to be in a really good position, being very strict again when you do that. So this is a recent exam question, just to show you how this would work in reality. And we've got here this question, Tom Pantau, which I know certainly my students have done this question. It's a really good one. So it's financial acceptability. So it's an MPV. So you've got 12 marks for that. And then part B is around how real options build on MPVs. And then the problem with incorporating and valuing real options using BSOP. So 8 marks for that. And then you've got your 5 marks for professional skills at the bottom. So in this one, just to put this into practice, remember it's 2 minutes per mark. So you're going to spend 24 minutes doing part A, which is your MPV. Now that's time pressured. You've got to be quick in there. And then you're going to spend 16 minutes doing your discussion. The professional marks, that 5 marks, I've embedded that within those times. So you'll notice when I do my 2 minutes per mark thing, I'm sort of ignoring the professional marks because they are embedded within those timings. So you're not specifically allocating time to those. You need to do those within that time frame. So for example, with an MPV, evaluate the financial acceptability. We need to do a conclusion, wouldn't we? We need to say whether the project should be accepted or not and why. And that'll help you with your analysis and evaluation marks. We need to get some assumptions in there. We need to challenge the forecast of sales because they're really ambitious. So let's do that and we'll get some skepticism. So they are done within those timeframes. So just be careful with that. Okay, so there are timings. Everyone okay with those? Everyone all right? You've got to be very disciplined. That's the key thing, discipline. You've got to be very strict with yourself. Look at the clock and just think, how am I doing for time? You've got to be very careful. Now, the second common challenge for students is poor exam mindset. And I'm a big fan of going into this exam positively. I'm a really positive person with exams. You've got to believe in yourself and believe that you can pass. So this is a real challenge is with AFM, because there are several threats to your exam mindset here. Some of the risks, these are some things that often put people into a bit of a spin when it comes to AFM. Being thrown by a difficult question, or there's a niche syllabus area that gets tested. If something comes up when you go, ooh, okay, I didn't really revise that. Or you're overwhelmed by information. These questions are big. Yeah, some of these questions, there's so many numbers, and people just go, I'm overwhelmed by this. So these are some risks. Here are your solutions. Firstly, take a deep breath. Like, I'm a huge fan of this breathing method where you breathe in for a few seconds, hold it, and then slowly exhale. So you just need to calm down and tell yourself, this is fine. Every single AFM exam there's ever been has had some really difficult parts in it. This isn't an exam where people regularly get 100%. There are nearly always bits in these exams where that are really difficult. I've taught quite a few prize winners recently who they don't get anywhere near 100%. They're still doing really, really well, but they're getting nowhere near it. Even people who win prizes aren't getting 100%. They're getting nowhere near that. So there are always bits that make you go, oh, that is nasty. So you just have to tell yourself, that's fine. It's okay. I'll start with the easy requirement. I'm not going to get thrown by that. A really nice example, actually, is that question Tom Pantower just showed you. In there, you had to value some bonds using the yield curve figures. And that's something that doesn't get tested particularly often. It could get tested. It doesn't get tested that frequently. And so lots of people panic and go, I can't do this. No, I can't do this whole question. It was 2 marks. And you just have to go, 2 marks. I'll guess a market value of a bond, and then I'll just move on. That's fine. And you'll still get the marks going forwards. Now, other things, if you're completely stuck, use the scenario for some clues, because the scenarios will have loads of bits in there that you can refer to. And again, just don't worry. If there is a really niche syllabus area, just go, everyone will find this difficult. I'll be okay. In terms of becoming overwhelmed when there are loads of bits of data or information presented to you, just focus on one thing at a time. So you're just going to go, right, I'm just going to start with part A and just do that. And even within something like a WACC, when you're doing a cost of capital calculation, if you look at it as a whole, it's like, I've got so much to do. Just focus on one thing at a time, one step at a time. I'm going to start by finding the cost of equity. Let's just do that. Forget everything else. Let's just get the cost of equity. And just by focusing on one thing and then moving on to the next one, then moving on to the next one, it suddenly becomes a lot more manageable. So break it up into little bits. Don't try and do it all in one go, because you will get stuck and you will get overwhelmed. So break up into bits and you can do it. And the main thing is, just keep swimming. As I always say, just stay positive and just keep going, because there will be enough marks to pass. Now, someone dropped this into the attendee chat a bit earlier, and I just want to make sure everyone's okay with this, because this is your biggest friend in this exam, the own figure rule, which is something that markers use. And this is, if you make a mistake in your calculations quite often, just keep going. It doesn't matter. You might be doing an MPV and you do your sales and you think, there's something wrong in that, or I don't know how to deal with that inflation. Okay, never mind. As you said earlier, Eva, you can't be a perfectionist in this exam. You have to almost just go, never mind, I'll move on. I'll just move on to the next bit. You'll only lose those marks once. You don't then lose all of the marks that use those numbers. You lose those marks for getting your sales wrong, for example, but you still get the marks for calculating the tax. You still get your marks for doing your MPV later. You could literally get 24 out of 25 for a question, even though the very first numbers you did were wrong, and therefore your answer is completely wrong. So it doesn't matter too much. So just be quite relaxed about it. And if you get stuck, guess and move on. If you can't find the WACC, you go, I don't know what discount rate to use. Lots of people will just go, okay, I don't know what discount rate to use. I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm just going to stop. But just guess. What would you guess? Just put it in the chat. So let's put you on the spot. You're stuck in the exam. You can't find a suitable cost of equity to use. Let's say cost of equity within a WACC. You don't know. I can't find the cost of equity. What shall I do? What are you going to guess? What's a good solid guess for a cost of equity? Anyone want to put that into the chat? So you've got 10%. Lovely. Yeah, great. Keegan, lovely. Yeah, that's always, and Kerry, that's my go-to. If in doubt, 10%, that'll do. move on. 11%, someone said to mix it up. Okay, that's okay. Anita, yeah, you go with 11. But yeah, you can just assume 10% and just move on. And again, you'll still then get the marks for doing the MPV. And your discussion marks, you'll still get those. So it's not a problem at all. So that's our own figure rule. This is a big friend of yours in the exam. So just make sure, yeah, you're getting those marks. And my favorite expression, just keep swimming. If you get stuck, not a problem. I'm just going to keep going. Okay, right. I've got 5 minutes now just to run through some frequently asked questions. I've got 5 that I've selected from previous webinars and just from my students and everything else that students ask me all the time about AFM. And then I'll get over to you guys and you can ask me questions as well. Okay, this is a big one that a lot of people ask. I don't have much time left before the exam. You guys have got just over 3 weeks left. How should I prepare? So haven't got much time left in terms of study. This is rather than within the exam. So you haven't got much study time left. How should I prepare for the exam at this point? There's a simple answer, and it's question practice. It's do as many questions as you can, ideally in ACCA's practice platform, so you're getting used to the software. There are loads of questions in ACCA's practice platform. They're really generous. They've given you loads of past exams. They've also given you practice exams. There's the pre-June mock. So loads of great resources. Do those and do them to time. Give yourself that time pressure. Set a timer for 49 minutes when you're doing your 25 mark question. Get used to the time pressure because it's very, very important that you do that. Next up, if I didn't put this here, I'm sure some of you would ask it in the questions in just a moment. What order should I do the exam in? So my approach to the exam is always to start with question 1. Now, the reason I like starting with question 1 is the biggest question. You sort of getting that out of the way. There's that old expression, eat the frog, which is a bit weird, but it's this thing about just doing the thing that's hardest first. And I like starting with question 1 as well, because then the very first thing you do on exam day is set up your report. That'd be the first thing I do. I walk into the exam, I sit down, the timer starts, I quickly look through the requirements, and then I do my report format because I know then I've picked up a few marks already. So I like starting with question 1 and getting that done. Then I do, obviously, the other 2 questions. Now, which one? I'd probably spend 10 seconds looking at question 2 and question 3 and just deciding which one I prefer. Literally 10 seconds. Don't spend 5 minutes thinking, ooh, which one should I do? So I just go, okay, I like the look of that one more. I'll start with that one because you're better off doing the one you prefer, aren't you? Because you don't want to run out of time at the end. But that's it. 10 seconds, just have a quick look and then choose which one you'd prefer. And then you obviously finish with the other one at the end. But don't waste loads of time doing that. And again, some people just do question 2, then do question 3 afterwards, and that's not a problem at all. I also spoke to the examiner at the conference last year about that, and that's the order the examining team said they do it in. Some people start with the shorter questions. You've got to do all 3 at some point, haven't you? So it doesn't, to some extent, it doesn't matter. But if I were doing the exam in 3 weeks, that's how I do it. I'd start with question 1. Right, this is something the examining team say that students often struggle with, commercial acumen marks. How do I get those within the professional skills marks? So the key here is about using information in the scenario. So linking it to the scenario that you're given. And just remember, the answers are often in there. So we see in questions things like it tells us that there's about to be a new government brought in. So there are going to be some political changes. Great, I need to use that. Or they reference a competitor is about to launch a similar product in the same market as us. Okay, we need to use that in our scenario. So you need to reference that and link your points to those scenarios. Another thing that the examiner said the other day, which was useful, was this sort of ties in with skepticism. But let's say your sales forecasts are 30% growth each year. So sales are going to grow by 30% each year. And then you're told in the scenario, there's a recession at the moment in that country. Yeah, you need to challenge that, don't you? You need to say, oh, hang on, 30% sales growth seems really high, especially given that there's a recession at the moment and people may want to save their money. So there's sort of a bit of overlap there between skepticism and commercial acumen, but you're acknowledging that. The other thing with commercial acumen is you can consider the bigger picture. So talk about the impact on stakeholders. What will shareholders think? What will the general community think about this? What will our employees think? So think about stakeholders, and that's a really nice thing to do for commercial acumen. Question 4, if I get my calculations wrong, can I still earn marks when discussing them? Now, a prime example here is you do an MPV and your MPV is negative, but it should have been positive. Can you still get the discussion marks when you're discussing those numbers? Yes, absolutely you can. And here, as I said earlier, OFR is your friend, own figure rule. You'll still get all of the discussion marks, even if your numbers are wrong. So just keep swimming, never give up. And finally, does my spelling and grammar get assessed? Lots of people ask this as well. And it's one of those, as long as the markers can read it and you've made it easy to mark, you'll get those easy marks. So if it's clear and the language is okay, if you make the occasional spelling mistake, you're not going to directly lose any marks. So don't worry about it too much. Obviously, it needs to be legible and the markers want to be able to read it. But again, don't go back and change. If you've misspelt a word slightly, don't go back and change it or you haven't got time. So just keep swimming. Okay, so there are 5 FAQs. We now have a little bit of time to do some live Q&A with you guys. So fire away with your questions. I know we've already got loads lined up and you guys have been asking questions throughout. So we're just going to run through this and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Lowry, you asked earlier, with the own figure rule, how many marks could you gain? So if it was a 10-mark question, could you get up to half the marks? Yeah, you could get 9 out of 10 on it if it's 10 marks. If you've made a mistake early on and you just keep going, you could still get, literally you'd lose 1 mark and that's it. So you can still get plenty of marks when you're doing that. So yeah, own figure rule, you can get as many as you want really. Right, so we've then also got how to tackle the theoretical questions in AFM. Ayush, you asked, it's getting the structure right is good. So using headings is great for the theoretical questions, especially if it's sort of discussing, evaluating something. You might want to do pros and cons. So breaking it up into little bits really helps you. If it's 8 marks, evaluating the comments that someone's just made, you can almost do half of those saying, yes, they're right. And then half of them saying, actually, they're not quite right. You can split it up. So try and break up your answer is something I'd say with the theoretical bits. That will really help. And just, stick to the layout that we talked about and use the scenario as well. Use the scenario for ideas and there'll be loads in there. There's another question from Ayush. Do markers give half marks in the exam for any points? No. No half marks in AFM. It's 1, 2 or nothing. So yeah, nothing on there. Any tips for corporate reconstruction? Practice is the key. There's a past exam question called Hanwood Shoes, which is a good one to look at for corporate reconstruction. That's available on ACCA's practice platform. It's a past exam. I can't remember exactly which exam it was in, but have a look at that. Yeah, Hanwood Shoes is a good one. That's that. Mohammed asked, in the platform, NPV, IRR, MRR functions, can we use the functions? Will they provide full marks? Absolutely yes. And in actual fact, they encourage you using the functions. If you're doing a big NPV, rather than discounting each year separately, use the NPV function. You get full marks. And actually, when you're doing your report on things, they really like it from a communication point of view. It's easier. So yes, make sure you can use those functions and do use them. And the markers can see the functions you've used within the cell. So they know you've done an NPV. So it's all good. How many points for a mark in theory questions? I'd aim for 1 mark per point sort of thing. So if it's advantages and disadvantages or something for 6 marks, I'd do 3 advantages, 3 disadvantages. Short, concise paragraphs, spaced out, and I'd aim for a mark per point. What if my theoretical answer is much different from the model answer? It's a good question and it happens a lot. You can still earn marks. So the answers that are provided by ACCA are suggested solutions. It's not the only things you could have said, especially in the discussion. Now, with the calculations, yes, there's sort of a right and a wrong way to do it with calculations. But with discussion parts, if you've said something slightly different, but you've justified it and you've made it relevant, you can earn marks. The other thing is the suggested solutions often, and you guys will be able to relate to this, are really long, aren't they? So you get it and you look and you go, wow, they've written 7 pages for this 25 mark question. I never would have been able to do that. That's not what you're trying to achieve. So the way that they write the answers and the structure isn't necessarily how you should do it in the exam. It's more just to like educate you and to help you understand the topics. So don't be disheartened if you've written half the amount, because there's no way you'd be able to write as much as they do there. So let's have a quick look. Right, so Mariana, you've asked quite a specific question about value at risk, and someone else asked about value at risk actually. So why does the formula sheet now not include the standard deviation table? The reason is they've changed it so that they will give you the information you need in the value at risk. I did a video on my YouTube channel, like updates for the 24-25 exam. So my YouTube is Andrew Moa AFM, and I did a little video which runs through the updates. In there, I explain why they've got rid of the tables and how to do a value at risk now. So they give you the information. So just check that out. But yeah, you can still do it. And value at risk doesn't get tested that often, but it does come up occasionally. And yeah, maybe we're overdue. How many marks for discussion overall in the exam? Again, you go and look at some past exams and you can see, but it's a significant amount is for discussion compared to calculations. Probably at least half, I'd say, in most exams will be discussion. So yeah, and because you've got the commercial acumen and the skepticism marks in there as well, yeah, it's upwards of 50% most of the time. So definitely worth working on. Let's have a quick look. John. So John's asked about like when you're doing workings in Excel or maybe in an appendix, I'm guessing, does it matter what order you do them in? If you started with part B, then you did part A and things. It doesn't matter too much as long as you clearly label it. Obviously, it'd be nice to start with part A and then work through to part B, part C. But as long as you've clearly labeled this is part A, this is part B, it should be okay. Yeah, it wouldn't be a problem. Right, Larry. You've asked a great question. Is it okay to copy and paste the questions into the word processor to avoid constantly referring? So I guess you mean the requirements. So you can copy and paste the requirements across into your answer if it helps you. I actually quite like when I'm doing like my headings and things, writing my own, because then it forces me to consider what the requirements asked and then turn it into a heading. And that process just really helps me to understand the requirements. But you can copy and paste, yeah. And you can copy and paste from the exhibits into your answers, but I probably wouldn't, because the risk is people just copy and paste stuff and you don't add any value, and it just annoys the markers. You know, if you're a marker and someone's copied across the entire exhibit into their answer, you just go, well, what was the point of that? Like, you're wasting my time. I've now got to look through that and see if you've actually said anything valuable. So yeah, I wouldn't copy and paste from the exhibits into your answer. I'd write your own content and add value. Shun, you asked if the discussion is based on the wrong calculated numbers, does it still carry marks? Yep. So I went through that in one of my FAQs, but yeah, it does. I think you asked that before I went through it. Yeah, so we've talked about that. Harley, yes, it's always a report format in question 1. So there'll always be a report format in there. So someone asked Paul and Paul, put and call options. What's the best way to remember it? If you're buying, it'll be a call. If you're buying futures, it'll be a call option, and if you're selling, it'll be a put. The way I remember it is when you leave the house, you call buy. If that helps, I get a lot of weird looks from people when I do that sometimes. Or if you're selling something, you put it on the market. So if you sell it, you put it on the market. However you want. Buy is call. B and C are next to each other in the alphabet. Sell and put, S and P are quite close. So you can think of it that way. But yeah, it's always going to be like that when you're doing these. Let's have a look at other questions. So, is it acceptable to do the workings in the answer table? Yeah. So again, I think we mentioned this a bit earlier, but when you're doing your workings, you could separate them out. So you could put them in a separate working, like I showed you earlier. Or if you did them within the cells, that's also okay. If it's complicated, it tends to be easier to mark if you do it as a separate working. And actually for you, it's easier rather than trying to do everything in the cells. So that's a bit, yes, much easier. Okay, right. There's a couple of quite long ones. How often does BSOP appear in the exam, Amy? Yeah, it's relatively commonly tested. We haven't seen it for a while, so yeah, you might want to work on that. We're probably due a bit of a BSOP calculator at some point. So yeah, just knowing how to do that. Little thing about BSOP, the Black-Scholes option pricing, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. But the BSOP calculator will only appear in your answer, so like, the solution bit at the bottom left. So you got your word processor, you got your spreadsheet. The BSOP calculator will only be there if you need to use it. So if you see the BSOP calculator at the bottom left of your screen when you're doing the exam, you need to use it. So it won't be there just for show or just as a bit of a distraction. If it's there, you need to use it. So look out for that, and that's something definitely to consider. Crucial areas to focus on, Rosser asked. Hedging will be in your exam, so make sure you really focus on hedging. Could be foreign exchange or interest rates, or both. So make sure you really practice that. That's a big one, which I'm sure you'll all be very glad to hear. And investment appraisal gets tested a lot. So like things like NPVs, APV gets tested a lot as well. Valuations and reconstructions, those sorts of topics as well get tested. So again, have a look through some of the past exams and you'll get a feel for what's been tested, and they're really good to practice as well. And the pre-June mock exam, which came out last week, is really good. It's got a really nice mix of the different topics, which is great. Okay, right, couple more questions and then we're pretty much there. Aman, you asked quite a long one about how to earn the different skills marks. So skepticism is all about stating your assumptions. Now, this is an important point. You will be asked to do professional skepticism in every question. Question 1, question 2, question 3. So you need to challenge the assumptions in every single question, even if they don't specifically ask for it. So like that question Tom Pantow I showed you earlier, there was no requirement saying specifically state your assumptions, but you still needed to get down a couple of key assumptions and challenge them. Say why that assumption isn't valid and what impact it might have. So they've predicted that sales will grow at 25% each year. Given that currently there's an economic downturn, this may not be realistic and therefore could overstate the NPV. Link to that and think about what impact it could have. So skepticism, you need to do in every question. Commercial acumen, I went through a moment ago, how to earn those marks. So it's about using the scenario and making it relevant to the company and to the industry that you're dealing with. Analysis and evaluation marks, that's about using the data correctly. But importantly for you guys, it's about concluding as well and giving advice. So if this is a hedging question, you are saying clearly at the end which hedging product is the most useful and why. Or if it's an NPV, should they accept it or not? If it's a valuation, should they make that acquisition or not? So analysis and evaluation is all about a clear conclusion and actually recommending a course of action. So that's a nice little tip for that one as well. Right, Amy, if the requirement says discuss assumptions for 6 marks, should you write each point as a separate paragraph or one continuous paragraph? Have a quick look at the good and the bad discussion points at the start of the webinar today. It's all about white space in between, short, concise points with gaps in between all the way. So definitely break them up into separate points. Yeah, one big block of text makes it really hard to mark. So make sure you do structure it properly and then you'll be fine. And then Dana, you asked, for people who got 49, that's always a painful score, isn't it? How to get over the line. It's all of the stuff we've talked about in this webinar today. So it's about good time management. It's about not being overwhelmed. It's about just moving on if you get stuck. It's about focusing on the discussion points. So it's all the stuff we've talked about today. If you do that, you more than comfortably get over 50 the next time. Okay, right, I've got through all the Q&As, Richa. Can you believe it? Got through all of the ones that you guys allocated. If I didn't get onto yours, hopefully it got answered separately by the ACCA team. But thanks for some great questions. They were great.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. We also tried our best because we have so many questions coming in today and still flowing in. But we tried our best to pick as many as we can. And thank you very much for picking the maximum of them, Andrew. And So I will just, it's now the time to close the session. But before we do so, I would like every one of you to please stay with me for a minute and just answer this poll for me, which is there on your screen, and which says that we want to know if you really know the mock dates and debrief dates or not. So just let me know the correct mock and debrief release date for us. And I can see that you are already answering the questions, looking more for some more answers here, um, just for my own confidence. So with the countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, I am moving to the answer slide. And here we see 44.6% of the students who have answered the question as per them. 9th May and 16th May is the release date, and that's lovely of you that yes, this is the right date of the release. So mocks are already there on CP practice platform, and the debrief videos are coming on this Friday on ACCA Student Support YouTube channel. The links, each and every link is there in your resource section. Please, before you go, do not forget to pick the links from there. So with this, let's close this session for today. And I would like to remind you three most important platform which we have.
Hi, Richa. I think you're having some connection issues at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think we could probably just try and wrap this up because we're struggling with you. Thank you.
I think we just got a few more resources that Reach, I think, we're just mentioning. So a few bits just to focus on. So you've got the CB practice platform, which is obviously a great thing for all the mocks and all the past exams. Don't forget ACCA study resources on their YouTube channel, which is, again, they've got loads of things like previous webinars as well, which is great. You've got my YouTube channel at Andrew Moore AFM, and also don't forget the Study Hub. Again, loads of past questions, loads of really useful resources for when you're revising as well. So just a few final reminders that ACCA provide you with so much stuff. Just go and make the most of it. There we go. Michelle, are we all right?
Perfect. Thanks very much. And everyone, just to remind you, you'll receive a recording of this session tomorrow, so you can watch back on demand. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.